Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining our webinar today. Our theme today, over the next hour or so, we'll try to keep it to well within the hour. We know you're busy people. Is how to add value to your Totara LMS with curated content that your learners will love. 2 seconds about me. Stephen Walsh here. I'm calling from, I'd love to say from sunny Dublin, but distinctly wintry Dublin here. I've been in and around the learning technology industry for about 22 years now. Was one of the co-founders at Kineo, who are in turn one of the co-founders and a platinum partner for Totara LMS. So know Totara and the community very well, and it's great to see so many familiar faces on the line today. I'm also co-founder of BuzzSumo and now Anders Pink, and Anders Pink is the company that is responsible for focusing on curation, and that's what we'll be talking about today. Twitter handle Stephen T. Walsh. So good to be back in touch and to meet some of you for the first time. I'll just jump straight in with this big question. I know you're all purposeful people in learning, so it always begins with a why. Why curate content for learning? Well, to my mind, it'd be great to get your feedback on this. There's one simple reason. I think we all start out every day with the very best of intentions to keep learning and to stay smart, and whether we call that continuous learning or collaborative learning or informal learning or social learning or just getting on and knowing stuff. There's so many terms for it. But we all know that there's more content out there that we can absorb, whether it's for our professional interests, our personal interests. New content is written every day. I read a very scary stat recently saying that there are 3 million new blogs published every single day. Now, probably most of those are not relevant to us, at least I hope they're not, but some of them are. So the real challenge, I suppose, is the second point here, which is too much content and too little time. Even with the best will in the world, it is just really, really difficult to stay on top of content coming from multiple different sources. So that's, to my mind, that's the big why behind curation. Why do we do it? We do it so that we can find, filter, and share recent and relevant content for learners, including ourselves, but for learners either within our client organizations or our own organizations, so they don't have to. So, it's the act of helping people stay on top of relevant information, helping make their search more efficient, making sure that they don't miss things that are really important to them, whether it's a sales team who needs to stay on top of some competitive insight about what a competitor is doing, or someone in a product team who needs to know about a new product launch or a new feature. All of that's curation of content. And for us, it's really about looking at the outside world. Most of this development, most new trends within an industry or a sector are happening outside the organization. Something like 72% of CEOs feel that they're not keeping the organization up to date as much on external developments as they should be. So I think there's a huge role for those of us in learning to bring that outside world into the organization. And just a little bit of data to back this up. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the work that Towards Maturity do, this global benchmark report that was just released last week, where they look across the industry and see just what's trending in terms of learning technology, what are people doing and what's working. And curation came up quite a lot in that, in a couple of different guises. A couple of stats that really stood out for me, just to give this some context, is they surveyed over 600 global organizations and several thousand people within them. 70% of learners that they surveyed find external web resources useful, essential, or very useful. And that's that's them looking at doing either just Google searches themselves or curating content. And 70% of them, again, same stat, do something around curating content for themselves. So the learners within our organizations are doing this for themselves already, whether they're just bookmarking or they're using some tool or service to find and curate content. They're doing it for themselves. Contrast how useful they find that compared to standard course-based e-learning, which of course remains incredibly important, but 47% people regard that as essential or very useful versus 70% for external content. And I think that tells us a lot about how learners are evolving to say, we know that, to paraphrase the X-Files, the truth is out there, the content is out there, so we need to do more to stay on top of what's happening in the outside world. However, it's not easy. It's not easy to find the best content and to do it every day. And this stat at the bottom, I think, is quite telling. Almost a quarter of the people can't find what they need. So there's people going out to find and curate content who are just not finding what they need. To me, that represents a huge opportunity for the learning community to do something about that and to help people with that problem. So I just want to pause there and just ask a quick question. We're not formally polling this, but just get some thoughts into the chat room here. Is this something that's on your radar right now? Is it something that your clients are doing or that you're doing for your clients in terms of actively bringing in content from the outside world? And I'm not talking about just cataloging learning resources that are already available within the organization or within the LMS. I'm talking about looking at outside content and bringing it back into the world. So just pause there, and any comments, thoughts, questions that you want to share into the chat room, whether this is something that you're already old pros, you've been doing this for a long time, whether this is new, something that your clients are asking about. Open to any comments or questions there. And if you want to just kind of pause and hear more, that's absolutely fine as well. I'll just give it a second to see if anyone has any comments or thoughts around that. No, well, let's keep moving, and let's see how the conversation progresses as we keep going through here. One observation that that's come through this Towards Maturity report, looking again at that stat, 70% of learners are doing something about this for themselves. They're going out into the world and they're finding relevant content. But in sharp contrast to that, only 14% of organizations have a curation strategy or some kind of action around curation in place. So to me, that suggests there's just a bit of a disconnect between how important learners find this whole topic of curating and finding content and how organizations are approaching it. And to me, that's, again, and that's a huge opportunity there to be real heroes for those learners and to deliver something through to them that's of value by helping them to curate content. Again, bearing in mind that stat that 25% of them can't find what they want. There's something we can do to help with that. I think part of the challenge with curation, whether you're doing it as an L&D professional or as an individual learner, is just the multiple different sources that are available to you. I mentioned that 3 million blog posts stat, but there's also all of the other familiar sources of information. If you log in the morning, if you're anything like me, probably check LinkedIn to see what's up. You probably have a look at Facebook, maybe less so for work, but increasingly we're seeing companies develop profiles there. You may use RSS feeds. You undoubtedly look at Twitter. You'll do Google searches. You've got blogs that you follow. You may have general news that you follow as well. And there's probably emails from friends, colleagues saying, you should read this was interesting, etc. You may have a social platform like a Yammer or Totara Social that's providing that content to you as well. And you're probably getting some form of update from an LMS, some form of e-learning. That's a lot of different sources coming at you. And I think the side effect of this kind of these multi-channels is it takes time and effort to check all of those. If you spent every day checking each of those sources, I'm guessing you wouldn't get a lot more done in the day. Because there's so much content produced in all of these channels, good stuff can get lost, and good is obviously a subjective term, but things that are recent, relevant, important to you in terms of doing your job can get lost in the mix there when there's so much other content that's available. Most people won't do it as probably being a little bit harsh there. Most people find it hard to do this thoroughly every day for every topic that they're interested in. And most people aren't great at sharing what they find. So 70% of people curate content, but only about 36% of it actually share it with anyone else. So if we're all doing this on our own for ourselves, good for us, not great for collaborative learning. And because so many of us work in teams, we're keen to find ways to make it easier for you to share that content. So curation is inefficient at the moment. The web is just too big, too fragmented, and we've all got too much else going on in our workflow to be actively curating content all the time. So the question, I suppose, that we're trying to answer today is, how do we make this easier? If we recognize that it's important and learners are telling us that it matters and they're telling us that they want help with it, how do we help? That's really what we're trying to do with Andrews Pink, and I'll come in to show you the tool in a second, but this crude visual is, I guess, me just trying to express in one view what we're trying to do. We're trying to filter the web for you. We're trying to take all of those different sources that are available out there, social channels, blogs, web posts, wherever you might want to look, bring it through a funnel and give you control over what you see. And there's two ways in which we can do that. We can either automate that curation for you, so you can set up rules saying, I want to see content about whatever topic it might be, leadership, management, coaching, iPhone product updates, and say, I want to see them only from these domains, only from these Twitter influencers, only from these RSS feeds. So you can control the flow of information that's coming through that filter. You can set that up so it's running every day for you and refreshing several times a day. You can also manually curate content. So you can use that automated feed of content as a base and then handpick the articles that you think are really relevant to you, to your clients, to your colleagues. And then where do you put that information? Well, not surprisingly, given our topic for today, it's about putting it in the LMS. Putting it in platforms where it's needed, where it's closely connected to the other learning that the organization is putting forward and that learners are undertaking. So we're all about finding and filtering content on the web, automating or handpicking that curation of it, and then feeding it straight to the LMS. So you don't have to go off to another system. There's no single sign-on involved. It's just there in the right place at the right time. And I'll show you exactly how that works. To just launch into the tool quickly and give you a quick demo, What I'm looking at here is the native Anders Pink platform. In a few minutes I'll show you how it performs inside Totara LMS, but right now this is the Anders Pink platform, all totally free at the moment. Just go to anderspink.com, sign up, create an account, and then you're up and running. What you can do to get started is just create a briefing. A briefing is just a word that we use for a collection of articles on any topic that you want with whatever rules that you want within it that updates frequently. We update this content every couple of hours to bring you fresh content. So I'll just show you how that works. I'll just create a topic that sure is near and dear to many of our hearts, good old e-learning. I've just put in the keyword e-learning there. What I'm seeing on the right here is a preview of content about e-learning. This is very different from doing a Google search. If I go to Google and I type in e-learning, I will see probably a link to Wikipedia or an e-learning guild article that's authoritative and definitive, probably a definition piece around e-learning. It'll probably be a few years old, and that's fine. If I know nothing about this industry and I want to get a kind of a 101 on it, that's a good place to start. However, we're taking this from the perspective that you and your learners and the people that you're supporting are professionals. They're immersed in whatever their field is, be it e-learning or leadership or content marketing, whatever it might be. Seeing content that's a couple of years old is not really what they're looking for. They're looking for recent, relevant content, because that's the stuff that's breaking news right now. That's the things the competitors are reading. That's the things that we might want to act on to improve our performance and improve the business performance. So we look at content that's no more than 30 days old, that's been shared on social media in the last 30 days. As you can see, these posts have come in 9 o'clock last night, 2 o'clock yesterday afternoon, a couple of days ago. So this is all recent content that's coming through. And we're looking at content that's been well shared across social media. So there's been a lot of talk in the press at the moment, as you might have read, about murky algorithms. How does Facebook decide what content to display you? How do these algorithms work in the background? I want to be totally clear and transparent about how ours work. We look at recent content. And we look at content that's been shared on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Google+. We aggregate the share counts across those using both Sumo data, which is our sister company, and then we present that to you. So recent content and well-shared content. Well-shared content is not always exactly the same as the highest quality content, of course, but it is a strong indicator that if other people are reading this content and sharing it on social, it has some value. So that's where the content is coming from. Right now I'm just seeing a quick preview of this content. It's a very broad-based set of articles here because I've just used one keyword, e-learning, which just like Google, you can refine this search. So I'm going to make this a little narrower by moving into this next field here where I can use words that must appear in an article title. So if you're curating content for people who are professionals in e-learning, they're probably looking for content that's kind of more practical than just all of this, because some of this is press release content and broader. So I might say, only show me content that's about tips in e-learning. When I do that, it will bring back any content that's about e-learning, but also has the word tips in the titles. As you can see, all these articles now are about e-learning, but they have the word tips in the title. So I've narrowed it down quite quickly. I can add as many of these additional words as I want to here. So I might say, also show me articles about trends in e-learning. And that'll now bring in content that's about, there's an article about learning management system trends. What do the stakeholders and users say? Probably a good one for everyone on the call to have a look at some point. Just finding that from Monday from elearningindustry.com. So just adding a few additional words here allows me to have kind of a main keyword search about my primary topics. That might be leadership or e-learning, whatever it might be, and then tips, trends, whatever additional words I want to include here. We've created some little lists of words that are easy to add in one go here. So tips, how to, ways to, guide, step by step, etc. Those are all around practical content or content about future trends. So if I took a topic that, say I know absolutely nothing about, like cloud computing, and I say, well, I just want to, let's say for some reason, I'm responsible for keeping people smart about cloud computing. I want to find content that's about trends in cloud computing. I would just use the term cloud computing, and I would use all of these keywords for trends, and it'll start me bringing back articles about cloud computing trends, as you can see here, and that's the kind of content I'm getting here. So you can use anything that you want for keywords. We're not restricted in any way here, and then you can use any words that you want to further qualify the keyword here. So for example, tips, trends, etc., as you just saw. You can also take words out. So let's say I don't want to see anything that's posting a job, because I'm not looking for jobs at the moment. It just says, suppress any article that has the word jobs in it. So I can remove words as well as add words. As soon as I'm ready to do that, I can just save this briefing. So all I need to do is give it a name. So I'll just say e-learning test, and I'll skip the description. I'll save it. This briefing is now live. So what happens now is I can go in and read any of these articles. If I just open any one of them, it'll just open in a new window, and I can just read it and consume it. And it will update every couple of hours. So we will use the rules that I've set up there, and we will go back out to the web, the entire web. We're not locked down to any specific website. If it's publicly available content, we can find it, scrape it, and pull it in here. So any site that mentions e-learning that meets the recency, relevancy, and keyword tests that I've just set up there, it will bring in that content for me. And then I can resort this content and say, show me the most recent content, show me the most shared content, which will drive slightly different content at the top of the list here. So just in a couple of clicks there, I set up a briefing that once I've set it up, it will just run and run for me. It will automatically update for me, and I'll show you in a couple of moments how I can get notifications on that. While we're setting up a briefing, I just want to show you another couple of quick things because it's useful to know in the back end in terms of making this briefing even more specific. I know lots of you, I'm sure many of you, because I know we're friends on Twitter, use Twitter to find content. You can obviously go to a Twitter feed and you can scroll through the 100+ people or however many number you follow and find what's written about e-learning or what's shared by influencers about e-learning. My experience of doing that is if you're following multiple people on Twitter, that can feel a little bit chaotic because one tweet's about e-learning, the next tweet's about something completely different, the next tweet's a political statement, the next tweet's an invitation to conference. It can be hard to just discern and separate signal from noise within Twitter. So something that we do in here is we say you can add any Twitter influencer you want to. So let's take Donald Clark, who I know regularly tweets content about e-learning. I can add Donald to my Twitter influencer list here. I don't need the @ sign, just his name. And as you can see, I've defaulted to show filtered articles filtered by keywords here. What that means is it will read Donald Clark's Twitter feed and it will bring back content and add it to my briefing that Donald has shared recently about e-learning, but only if it is about e-learning. So it's reading his tweets, it's looking for specific mentions of e-learning and mentions of my keywords in here as well. So it's a way of kind of taming, refining your Twitter feed so you're not inundated with the entire Twitter feed. If I wanted to add Donald's entire Twitter feed to my briefing, I could do that. I could just say, show me all articles shared by Donald, and it'll bring in anything that he's shared on Twitter over the last couple of days. But I want to keep this narrow. I want to keep it filtered and focused by keywords. If I'm not sure who to follow in this subject matter, we suggest people to you. So we use the Twitter API. We look out to see who writes regularly about this topic of e-learning, who's well followed in this topic, and who mentions it in their Twitter bio. So for example, Tom Kuhlman runs the Articulate community in the Rapid e-learning blog. Interesting, in his title he says, tweets are mine of 50% nonsense, just follow every other tweet. He's obviously being a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but we can follow every other tweet by just saying, bring in everything by Tom Kuhlman, but I only want to see it if Tom mentions e-learning in his tweet. So in that way you can control Twitter influencers, bring in as many as you want to, and then filter them by keywords so it remains really tight, specific, and focused and on topic. So that's Twitter influencers. You can do exactly the same with any domain that you want to. So let's say, for example, I want to bring in content from Learning Pool. I just put in learningpool.com. I can choose to say, show me all articles that have been shared from Learning Pool over the last 30 days. So there's an article will pop up there, government catalogue that was shared on Monday on probably on Twitter. Or I can say filter by keywords. So now only show me articles from the Learning Pool domain that have been shared on social media that specifically mention the word e-learning. And I can do that with any domain that I want to. I can use subdomains as well. So if I wanted to use bbc.co.uk/tech, I could do that as well. So if the BBC happened to write an article about e-learning in their tech blog, it will pull up in here as well. So again, it can filter by show me everything. I could add Harvard Business Review, for example. And again, I can say show me everything from these sites if I want to. Obviously, that will mean we'll get a lot of stuff that's not about e-learning because Harvard Business Review writes about, disappointingly writes about things that aren't e-learning. Or I can keep it filtered so I'm only seeing content from these domains that is related to keywords. I can also whitelist these domains. So if I wanted to see only content from these domains and nowhere else on the web, I could just click only show articles from these domains. So if I do that, and I click only show articles from these words, it will suppress the rest of the web and only show me articles from these 3 domains. And that can be really useful if you want to create a briefing that's based on a very refined set of high quality domains that you really trust. So for example, we've created ones that have just got content on coaching and leadership from Harvard, London Business School, Wharton and McKinsey, and nowhere else. So you can create a really nice reading list by just narrowing you down your sources like that. So all you need to do that is put in the domains that you know and that you trust. You don't need the www, just the domain name and any subdomain as well. So that's how you can add domains. If you use RSS feeds, and many of you I think are still using RSS readers and they still have a purpose to play, RSS, a great way of bringing in content from any site. This is the RSS feed from the New York Times technology section. I can add in the RSS feed here. And again, filter it in exactly the same way. Only see articles from that RSS feed when they're related to e-learning. I can see the whole RSS feed if I want to, which will bring in lots of stuff from that tech feed, which might be interesting for a bit of a browse. But here I want to keep this nice and focused and relevant to me. So I'm going to filter it to show it only by keywords, which I can do there. And you can import RSS feeds en masse. So if you're using Feedly or other feed readers, you can bring in all your RSS feeds. And you can do something you can't do in most other RSS tools, which is you can filter by keywords. You can see whatever is relevant to you from the RSS feed rather than the whole feed. Final thing you can do when you're setting up a briefing is you can add, you can block a domain. So if you don't want to see content, say from YouTube in this briefing, you just put in the name of the domain that you want to block, and then we'll completely suppress that. So those are the different things you can do when you're setting up a briefing. So you can add whatever keywords you want to, whatever influencers from Twitter that you want to, and then filter them by your keywords, whatever domains or subdomains or URLs that you want to, filter those by keywords, any RSS feeds that you want to, and then block any domains that you want to as well. So you've got a lot of control over how you set up these curation rules, and that's what creates what we call kind of an automated briefing for you, which is exactly what this e-learning one is for me now. So I can now read this content, I can save it if I want to as well. So this is an important thing to be able to do, which is I might just automatically read this content, refresh it, or come back every couple of hours to see what's new. I also get an email that pushes out to me to say what's new every day, so I don't have to come into the app every time to check it out. If I see an article that I think, well, this is actually of lasting value, I can pin it and save it. So if I just pin this article, seven tenets of a good SEO succession process, I've got a few saved lists set up here, which we call boards. So I might say I want to add this to my leadership reading list because I think that's something that I want to come back to later, or that I think colleagues will find useful as well. So this is me doing a little bit of manual curation by adding it to a list here. So I just click to save it to that list. And then these saved lists are in here. They're just little folders of articles. So I've got a few in here that I've saved kind of over the last couple of weeks running this briefing, where I've clicked something and said, that's particularly useful. I think my audience will like that a lot. So it's just saving articles into a folder for me. So while these briefings will update every couple of hours, and there's a whole lot of different types of briefings that I've got in here, your lists are permanent. They will stay the same always, as long as you save content into them. So that's how briefings work. You set up briefings and then you can save articles to it. There's a lot more you can do within the platform around adding comments to articles as well. So if I want to upvote something, I can do that. I can add an upvote to it. I can also add a comment to it. I'll show you how that works in a second. But I just wanted to give you a quick overview about how the tool works. There's also a ton of public briefings that we've created in here. So we, as Anders Pink, have said, there's lots of topics we can create briefings on. We'll create a whole range for people. So if you were looking for content on, say, management, we've got ones on coaching, compliance. These are ones that we've set up already with kind of good quality rules, good quality blog posts within them. So for example, if I show you this one on HR, we've taken this briefing and we said, let's show all the articles about HR and learning from Harvard, TED, McKinsey, and Wharton. So we've taken 4 domains, locked it down to say just show content from those 4 domains, and then constantly display it. So it brings back good quality content, a good mix of video content and long-form articles, as you'd expect from those different sites as well. So that's curated content within the Anders Pink platform. What's, I think, important to think about then is, where should this content go? Well, of course, you can come to the Anders Pink platform. You can spend time on that platform. You can create teams on there. You can share content, add comments, save articles to boards. We think it's really important, though, beyond that, to put this content where learners need it and where they will find it. And for us, the LMS is a really, really important use case for that. So we've built a plugin which is now available to you to display this content within Totara via the plugin, which just calls on the API to do that. So that might mean showing articles to managers about recent leadership content on a Management or Leadership Academy page, and then for sales staff, you might show completely different briefing from different content. So it might be competitor and client news as part of a sales academy area. I'm just going to show you how that works by just opening up an example of Totara here. So this is just a kind of a vanilla, unstyled instance of Totara. I'm just on my dashboard here. You can see these different blocks that are displaying in here. So I've got one on technology news, employee engagement, copywriting tips, leadership recommended reading. Each of these is coming straight through from Anders Pink. So if I just customize this page, I'll show you in the background how it's working. All you need to do is add a simple block. Works the same way as any other block that you might add into to Totara. So I've now got this page customized. I can just create a new block here down at the bottom. So add a block. I'll add an Anders Pink block. Give that a second to load. And then I just configure the block to decide what I want to show within it. So I'll configure the block here, configure Anders Pink block. And all I do then, once I've got that, is I decide what do I want to show a briefing, which is one of those kind of automated briefings that I've created, or do I want to show a saved board? So I'm going to say I'll show a briefing. I just select from my drop-down list. So there's the e-learning one that I just created a few seconds ago. I'm going to choose that one, give it a name. So let's just call it latest on e-learning. Got a few options in terms of how we lay it out here. So how do we position the articles on the right, or how we position the images on the right or above? I'll say on the right. I'll make it a 2-column one, and I'll decide how many articles I want to display. So you can show up to 30 articles, or as few as 1 if you want to. And I just say I'll show 6, and then I'll save it. Skipping a few steps here, but just to give you a quick sense of just how it works within Totara LMS. And then once I've configured that, that will just pull through content directly from the briefing that we just created on the fly there. So if I just come down to the bottom here, latest on learning. So this is the briefing that I just created over here in Anders Pink. So if I just go back into my briefings, there's my learning briefing. My learning briefing here. It's just pulling through the articles from this directly. So there's a cognitive reality one, there's the adult learning theories one, and here it is displaying those articles inside inside Totara LMS. So there's no SSO involved, there's no integration in the platform, there's no sign-on required. These are just displaying within your Totara LMS, and then if I want to read these straight from Totara, I just open the articles. It'll open a new window. You can obviously style it to open it in a different kind of window if you want to as well. And then I can just display these any way that I want to, or move them around, do whatever I want to within them, move it up to the side, reformat them, etc. I can also display any of the saved lists as well. So as you saw, as we were kind of configuring on the fly there, I can either display an automated briefing, or I can display a saved list. Actually, that's what one of these is here. So I'll just configure that one as we're looking at it. So those handpick articles that I've manually curated within Anders Pink are one of those saved boards. So if I go back to Anders Pink here, here's my saved articles. Here's my leadership reading lists that I just add to as I see a relevant article. There's the one I just added a few seconds ago, the good CEO succession process. I can just display one of these saved curated reading lists within Totara LMS as well. So if I just go back to the block here, that's what I'm doing here. I'm showing a saved board, I'm showing a leadership reading list, and I'm just saving that. So that's me manually deciding which content to display within Totara, rather than just letting an automatic feed come through from Anders Pink. Both of them work in exactly the same way. You can configure them whatever way you want to. You can display them as side courses, you can display them as central panels, you can do that as a single list as I've done here, you can do a 2-column layout. You've got a fair amount of control over how you lay these out. This is an example just styled in a slightly different instance. Obviously you can style the themes whatever way you want to, and then that will influence how your block looks, but you can do it as 1-column, 2-column, small images, large images. So you've got a lot of control over how you lay these out. So and then coming very soon, Simon's working on it at the moment, is integration with Totara Social. So just like we've integrated with Totara LMS here, you'll be able to drop a briefing or saved board into your feed within Totara Social, and then you can use all the native Totara Social functionality like watch, share, comment to drive conversation around these articles and to kickstart some social learning. So that's how it works from a kind of a technical perspective. So you create the briefing in Anders Pink, just use the API key. I should just point out at the top here, Those briefings are all controlled within your API. So here you've got a series of briefings that you just decide which ones you want to send to Totara LMS, and then these are the ones that will appear within your drop-down list when you go to configure the block within here. So very, very simple, very non-technical to manage in terms of setting up your briefings and your boards and then sending them off to the LMS. So I just wanted to pause there and again just throw out the question to the group, and don't worry if you don't have an answer, because I've got a few thoughts to share with you. But given what you've seen there about what you can do in terms of curating content, either automatically or manually, I'd be very interested to hear kind of any thoughts that you might have around kind of use cases relating to doing that, needs that your clients might have for doing that. So I'll just pause there and see if anyone's got any comments, questions around how you could imagine using it. While you're doing that, I can see questions come through about, will the API work with SharePoint? Yeah, absolutely. The API will work with any platform. It's a RESTful API. I can send you through the developer documentation. It's open to you guys to use and take it whatever way you want to. We're building out plugins for a range of different platforms. SharePoint is absolutely on the list. So yes is the answer to that question. We don't have a plugin for SharePoint right now, but the API will work with any platform. Questions, comments on this content curation use cases? Any thoughts? Because I'll share a few that I've seen working that might just spark some ideas for you about how you might actually put this into practice in your own organizations or for clients. Yes, one thought's come through there. Use case for course and e-learning development projects. Absolutely, I think that's a great one. I think you can use it to fuel ideas for development, and you can also use it as part of development. So either attach it to a course or as part of a blended program. So I've got a list here of 12, of which that's one. So thanks for that suggestion that's come through there. Just to quickly run through these, and obviously you'll have these slides on this recording, so you can go through these in more detail. One thing, and I do this personally every day, which is just trying to stay on top of an industry. I'm in the learning industry, things change every day, new articles get published, there's so many new ideas that emerge. Staying on top of them is tricky. So creating a briefing that's focused at the industry level, so this is just one on the construction industry that just brings in articles about the construction industry based on some filters and some keywords that we've used. It saves time. So if you've got a sales force or a marketing team who need to stay smart about what's happening in their industry because their clients expect them to be consultants or to add value to the conversation, creating an industry-focused briefing can be really useful, and then embedding that maybe at an academy level within the LMS or anywhere else within your sites. Tracking specific developments within an industry as well. So this is narrower. This is just looking at Facebook marketing as a subset of an overall industry. You may get less content when you go narrow like this, but to me, less is better. I don't want 1,000 articles, 98% of which are not relevant to me. I want a few articles that are exactly on target for what I'm trying to stay on top of, and that's what this particular briefing does here. Same for banking and fintech trends. Obviously, a huge amount coming through about fintech bots. What does blockchain mean? What's happening with Italian banks, etc.? Great way to keep on top of it. So we've got clients who use this in a consulting capacity to help them inform their clients. They use it as source material for newsletters or for briefings that they access as well. This is the use case that someone mentioned as a suggestion there, and I totally agree with it, which is this idea of integrating it with blended learning. So you can imagine a situation where maybe you've developed a blended program on, I don't know, pricing, for example, and you've embedded that within your Totara LMS instance. Often you might have a recommended reading list that you assign with that. Those reading lists, as we all know, if you don't keep them up to date, they become irrelevant really quickly, especially with a fast-changing topic. So why create a static reading list when you can create a dynamic one that updates for you and that runs alongside your content and stays relevant as new content gets developed? So either you can manually curate that reading list by just clipping articles and adding them to curated board, or you can just let it run and show content alongside your formal learning programs as well. So you can set must-read lists, might be ahead of a webinar or a specific e-learning program that you want people to do. And I think the other end of that blended learning journey is helping to keep people engaged. And we talk a lot in this industry about micro-learning, about spaced learning, about reinforcement. I think a little bit of curation can really help with that. So having practical calls to content, and that might be kind of the last screen of any learning module, so embedding it within an authoring tool or a piece of content, or just having it within the site itself. So, you can imagine back at this level here, this could just be a, once you've finished your blended program, now do these things. Now read these things, read one of them every day for the next week, and you'll stay on top of whatever the topic is. So it's a way of providing some micro-learning, some continued engagement. We've got some people who are using this for alumni group in terms of exec ed as well. So if you've got a group of people that stayed together for 3 days to do a course on situational leadership, why can't you just continue to feed relevant content to them? Well, you can. But it's a lot of effort to go out to the web every day and find that content. That's part of what this curation activity can make a little bit easier for you. And you can also create curation assignments for people. You might ask people, you know, this doesn't have to be one way from an L&D or from an admin. You help curate content as well. So you can have within MS Pink multiple people who have the rights to create briefings, edit briefings, flag content. So you can make this much more of a group crowdsourced activity as well. It doesn't have to be just the work of one person to curate content and find what's relevant. Social learning, we just looked at a quick screenshot from Totara Social there. I think one of the real challenges about social learning is driving relevant content into the social feeds to get the conversation going. So you can do that with curated content. You can share relevant content, might be controversial, provocative content, and then ask people for views. You know, our biggest competitor just did this. Is that a risk? Is that an opportunity? Is it a threat? Do we need to react? Asking those questions as a good facilitator, as a good curator, you're adding value to the conversation already, or you're saying, I just read this, it made me think about a question that was asked when we were together last week. What do we want to do about this? Does someone want to turn this into a project for us? And then you start doing that moving of learning curated content into the workflow, and you start creating opportunities for people. Latest thinking from quality sources, I mentioned this in passing, so whitelisting certain domains, feeds, or authors that you particularly favor, or that you know your audience favor. We're doing a piece of work for one of the learning and management institutes that are really, really specific about the 10 sites that they really trust, and they only want to see content from those sites. And what we've done is we've said, let's just lock down your briefing so you only see content from those sites and nowhere else. And that's how we've curated content for them. So you can filter by specific topics, just like the TED Talks, Harvard McKinsey one that I just showed you an example of. New products and technology. If you're developing product academies, or you're supporting a sales or marketing or product knowledge learning initiatives, we all know, you know, that take Snapchat, for example. There must have been, you know, 10,000 articles written on Snapchat in the last year or so. You certainly don't have time to read them all. But if there was a feed coming through, if you're trying to teach people how to use Snapchat, you can create, we've got just a public briefing on the latest tips and tricks on how to use Snapchat. That's really helpful for just staying on top of the latest developments in that. And then you build a body of knowledge around that because people can upvote articles that they particularly like. Performance improvement, you know, we're all in the business of helping people stay smarter and actually apply this content in the workplace. So daily tips on how to continuously learn and improve. That might be in broader topics like skills and tips, for example. Tracking competitors, I mentioned. It's very useful for doing that. So if you want to stay on top of what your closest competitors are doing, you can create a briefing that just says, show me content from their domains anytime it's published, show me anything from their Twitter feeds anytime it's published. So rather than having to go off and check multiple competitor websites every day, you can keep on top of them in one go. Very useful for sales and marketing teams in what we found so far. If you want to do deep dive research into a topic as well, so here's one on the European economy, shifting sands at the moment in this one, so keep an eye on this briefing. But emerging trends, latest articles from all sources can help you or a project team get immersed in a topic that you might need to deeply research. And also customer research, so if you wanted to stay on top of what your customers are doing, so again, really relevant for sales teams. Vodafone, for example, are testing this out at the moment. They obviously want their own people to stay up to date on everything that's said about Vodafone in the media so that you know what's happening when you go and see clients. And that's, you know, that's really important, I think, for anyone who's trying to stay on top of it. So that's just a few examples of use cases. That's just, you know, tip of the iceberg stuff that we've seen kind of in recent months as people have started to use the platform. I'm very sure that other ones will emerge, and I really kind of welcome any thoughts and ideas for other examples that might come through. I'm just going to pause and have a quick look because there's been a few good questions coming through. Someone's asking about the cost of the API. I'm going to come on to that. Can it access closed group posts in Facebook? Only if they're public domain. So we can access any content that's publicly available on the web. So if it's publicly available, we'll find it. If it's behind a firewall or a paywall, what we'll find is we'll find the rich snippet of it. So this comes up sometimes, say for example, Financial Times content. So to get to Financial Times content, you've got to pay to subscribe to it. We don't have any way of bypassing that paywall for you, you need to have a subscription with that publisher if you want to see that content. But we will show you a preview of the content, so we'll show you however much the FT makes available publicly on the web. So it at least surfaces articles for you that might be interesting. So you can always decide, I'll pay for a monthly subscription to get to that article. If you have a subscription for it and you are logged in, we'll just pass you straight through because we'll pick up on the fact that you have a subscription, so it'll just be like accessing the site as normal. Another question here, could AP be used to configure to access Strava? That's really interesting. I hadn't thought about that, but that's a really interesting use case. I'll take that offline and I'll come back to you on that one. That's a nice broader use of it. But now keep the questions coming. That's really great. Thank you very much so far. A couple of other things to quickly say. A lot of the use that we have seen around Pink so far has been on the move. As you can imagine, a lot of this content that we consume in a curated manner, you do it during commuting time or 5 minutes of downtime between things. The native app is designed to do exactly that. So you can set up a briefing, access it on the native app, get notifications. So if someone else in your team, and I should just quickly show you this functionality because it may be relevant for some of you that want to have a look at the team side of it. So if I just log back in outside of the API functionality, I'll quickly show you how this works. Whoops, sorry. So I was using that as a single briefing there, but if I just go into a team, so for example, if I go into our startup community, you'll see that when you're in a team within Pink, I was just showing you the single user version there, but you can also create teams and have multiple people within a team. So this is a team that's all about startups. It's a public team, anyone can join it. These are people from across multiple different organizations. And if I see an article in here that I'm particularly interested in, so if I just go to my homepage here, which brings through kind of all the relevant articles for me, I can upvote it. I can also add a comment to this article, and I can also flag someone in the team. So any of you who use Slack might be familiar with this functionality as well, where you can kind of call out a specific member of the team and let them know that an article is relevant for them. You can also flag something as a must-read within the team as well, and that helps the team to see, I'm curating content, I think this is really important, go and have a look at it. So all of those signals that you give can help the rest of your team within the Pink platform stay on top of what's happening. That's different from how the plugin works. The plugin is just taking a feed of the content, so it's not taking the upvoting, flagging, commenting, and must-read functionality. It's just taking a feed of the content. But if you're natively using the Pink platform, you get access to all of this as well. I mentioned that in passing here because if you get a notification that someone's flagged an article that's really interesting or said you should read this, you get a little ping on your phone, which allows you to just access it kind of as and when you want to as well. So do have a look at the apps. They're all free, and they're in the Google Play and App Store available right now. You can also curate straight from your browser as well. So if you are on a website, so say for example, go to the Totara LMS website. If I see a piece of content in here that I think is particularly relevant for me to add and to share with other people, so say for example, incredibly timely from Kaylee, how to introduce social learning to your program. If I want to add that to my saved boards, I can do that just via our plugin up here. So if I just click on the plugin icon, again, this is sorry, not plugin, Chrome browser extension, I should say. So this is just in the Chrome store. I can choose which team I want to display this in, so I can choose it within Pink, for example, which board I want to put the content on, so I might put it on the board for now, and then just save it. And then it will go straight into my my saved board, and if I have that board displaying within Totara, it will just go straight into my Totara LMS. So in literally 3 clicks, you can take a piece of content from anywhere on the web and have it display within your Totara LMS as a must-read article, which is quite a handy way of just quickly adding content on the fly if you find something that's just out there and you just want to get it to display in here. No IT effort involved whatsoever. It's 3 clicks to be able to do that, and that's a free Chrome extension. So if you're using Google Chrome as your browser, you can clip and save any URL into any briefing or saved board that you want to as well. So that's how it works in terms of how it can work for you, whether you're a Totara partner or an end user of Totara, and of course critically, how much does it cost, as someone already anticipated as a topic of discussion today. I just want to quickly take you through that. One thing I would say is you can use it as is. You can also, if you are a Totara partner, you can offer services around this. So in my experience working with clients, getting this up and running, there's 3 or 4 areas where a little bit of help and support can be useful. One is figuring out, kind of as we've done on the call today, just figuring out what should we be curating. What topics should we be looking at? Where should we be using this? Should this be part of our key blended programs? Should it align to our corporate academies? It should align to specific topics. Should we start with a certain audience? All of those scoping and design questions, needs analysis questions that you would ask in kind of any initiative are good questions to focus on here. There's the manual act of creating the briefings and save boards and mapping those to kind of relevant content, again, blended programs, courses, academies that you've already set up. There's the technical integration work, so there's using the plugin or using the native API, because we have a full API as well, which you can use, build apps, do whatever you want to as well. That's different from the plugins. It's far more open and flexible. So there's either using the plugin or using the API, integrating it with your clients' platforms. Someone mentioned SharePoint, is another one you can integrate with for sure, and then figuring out how you want to display it, where you want to display it. So all of that work that I was quickly showing you with the plugin about which page you might display it on and how you might display it on the page, left, right, column, whatever it might be. Then there's the ongoing management of it, so keeping those briefings up to date, adding influencers, adding domains, curating content, and then measuring engagement over time. So I just mentioned those in passing as services that I think that you can wrap around any particular briefing in terms of Anders Ping services, and those are totally up to you as a Totara partner about how you want to provide these and what you might want to add to your services around these. You can price these whatever way you want to, and of course if you're a client you can just figure this out for yourself or ask your partner to help you out with it. In terms of pricing, so there's 2 levels. The Totara plugin uses what we call the embed API. So that's the API that just pulls in content, displays it within Totara LMS, or Moodle, I should say, in passing as well. Will also work in Moodle. You can either display those automated briefings or those saved boards. So a couple of different levels in terms of pricing here. We have a free version. Within the free version, we provide 8 preset briefings, and those are on general topics like technology, leadership, latest news, etc. You can't edit those, but you can embed them exactly as they are into your Totara LMS. If you just want a generic briefing on a general topic and it happens to fit with your needs, well, great, then you got something for free. But if you want to start editing briefings, then you move into these options here. So we've got a free trial which allows you to set up 3 briefings and 2 boards. Then beyond that, as you can see, we can price per month or have a fairly substantial discount annually as well. So it kind of starts at £19 per month, and then £195 per annum if you want to pay annually for those, for 3 briefings and 2 boards. Then a level above that for 20 briefings and 10 boards. So we don't track how many users you have in the organization or how many articles you display or whether 20 people have clicked on an article or 20,000 people have clicked on an article. We don't track or price on that basis. We base it on how many live briefings or boards you have running at any one time. You can obviously turn one off and add another one, and we just track the total number that are open at any one time. And that's pricing kind of per instance. So if you were running 20 different Totaras for 20 different clients, you would have 20 different API keys. The API key is specific to each client instance. That's the pricing for the embed API. If you want the full API, so as I mentioned, separate from the plugins, we've got a whole API which allows you to create new briefings natively within the API. You don't need the Anders Ping platform at all. You can also create new apps, integrate with any other platform like SharePoint or a CRM or anywhere else you wanted to. There's a different set of pricing for that. Again, it's also tracking on number of briefings and boards, and is price per month and price annually for that as well, starting at $299 per month. because of the season that's in it, apologies for how crass this sounds, but we wanted to offer a discount to all of you attending the webinar today. So if you want to check out either of those plans, either the Embed API or the full API, 30% off the first 6 months for turning up and spending the time with us today. If you need to know more about the mechanics to that, either let me know or let Iris know, and Iris's email address is on the screen there. Just mention that you took the time and had the inclination to turn up at the Totara webinar, and we'll help you out. We'll help you out from there. So I hope that's helpful. In terms of getting started, as I say, the plugin is free to test out. So you can just download it straight from our site here. It's hosted on GitHub, the link is there, and all the developer documentation and all of this pricing is there as well. If you want a trial key to get going, just drop us an email, so /contact, and let us know how we can help. We're very keen to help you get started with using this and to start doing curation for real inside your instances and for your clients and for your LMS users and learners. So do just let me know if you need any help with that. So that's just some of the things I guess that we're trying to do, is just make platforms more effective, make sure there's content in the right place without needing any SSO and logins, keeping people smart, reducing effort, driving micro-learning and driving social learning. I think those are some of the things that we hope to try to achieve with this, and to bring in content that will help your learners stay smart and stay relevant with less effort for you and less effort for them. That's what it's all about. Those are my details there. Stephen@anderspink.com, and Twitter handles for me and for the company as well. Very happy to take any other questions that you have. So I'll just jump into the chat room and see if there's anything we haven't addressed here. Do just add in any questions or contact me afterwards. Can the partners have a no-cost intro plan for demos? That is a great idea, Sean. I actually was talking to a couple of the Totara Core team members last night, and my answer to that is yes. I think we'll be able to set up effectively a sandbox site, or you can use obviously you could use the free API key and implement it on any Totara instance. So that's as I mentioned in passing here, there's a free API key that has the 8 standard briefings within it. Those you can set up to just create any briefings that, or just to display how briefings work. You can't edit those, but that's effectively a no-cost plan. There's no charge associated with that. But nice idea to have a sandbox site, I think, set up as well that you can just use for demos as well. When will Totara Social be available? Good question. Probably asking the wrong guy. I might. Sorry. When will the Totara Social plugin be available? I would say we're a couple of weeks away from that at most. It's already working in Totara Social in the test instance. It's just a matter of turning it into a plugin, so it's fully integrated. So I would say weeks, not months, on the answer to that. But given the time of year, probably maybe safer to say certainly by Jan 2017. I would expect. But we can keep you posted on how that goes in terms of the social plugin. Any other questions, comments, thoughts? Anything coming through? You guys need some time to digest this, I'm expecting. I know there was kind of a lot in that to go through. Okay, well look, there's no need to keep running exactly to the hour if we've covered everything we need to. So listen, I really appreciate you all spending the time with us today. As I say, do just let me know if you need any help at all with this. Details on the screen there. You'll receive the recording as well, of course, so look forward to kind of picking up with you if you've got any further questions after that. But that's all from me. Hope you have a pleasant holiday season and break when you get there, and look forward to catching up with you again soon.